Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Take Flight session. My name is Macy Merriweather, and I am the graduate assistant for the internships area of the Career Center. And I am joined today by Jordan Jobe with Ryan LLC, and we're super excited to have you here, Jordan. So thank you so much. Yeah, we are going to go ahead and just jump right in. And if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your roles at Ryan, and that'll get us started.
All right, awesome. Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. So I am a senior recruiter at Ryan and kind of what I do for the team. So I'm actually specifically on the campus recruiting team. So a lot of what I do is recruit for the interns and then full-time consultants that are right out of school to come to Ryan. So it's a lot of pretty much any business majors that you can think of. So it's a lot of we're going to career fairs for the business school at, a lot of different universities, and then doing a lot of, phone interviews, things like that. So that's pretty much kind of a synopsis, I guess, of my role.
That sounds like a super fun role to do. And you seem perfect for it. Just super happy go lucky and cheerful. I love it.
Thanks. No, that's what kind of like got me into it. It's just, I loved working with people. So I was like, I want to do something where I can talk to people all day and, get them excited about their jobs and things like that. So it works out really well.
Good. Yeah. So tell us kind of about a day in the life of a senior recruiter and kind of what skills you use and things. And then if there are any job duties that weren't explicitly stated in your job description that you do as well, if you could kind of touch on that too, that would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Probably the biggest thing is so many different emails. I'm sure that a lot of people have that in their job, but kind of like a typical day to day is just, I do a lot of phone interviews, but to do those, it takes a lot of coordinating. So I'm, reviewing resumes, going through, LinkedIn and, other career sites that we kind of use to get resumes, and then reaching out to those individuals, usually by email, to set up phone interviews and, Zoom meetings and things like that. So, a lot of it is calling people and pretty much having like 30-minute phone interviews to talk about like what their experiences and what they're looking for in a role, and some more like behavioral type questions. So that is a lot of what I do, but I would say also a lot of it is on the business side of things, talking to managers who are going to be, filling a spot on their team. So really partnering with them to see what needs they have and what candidate would, be a best fit for their team. So it is a lot of relationship building, which I really like. So not only do I get to, build that relationship with the candidate, but also the manager and find that perfect fit. So I would say that's a big part of it. And then usually in the fall and the spring, it's a lot of events. So, doing career fairs, meet the firms events. We do also have, meet and greets typically, or site visits to Ryan so that you can see like the building you'd be working at. So I also do a lot of presentations. And I have also been like partnering with UNT a lot to do anything, as far as like networking presentations or interviewing or anything like that. So I'd say a lot of the skills, definitely presentation skills, just because I would say I typically in the fall, I probably present like twice a week, just to different organizations that we're involved in, or at during classes and things. So that has been a skill that I've had to improve over the years. So that is something that, I had to really work at. So I'd say that just communication skills, just because I really have to, be able to communicate with, all different people in a day. So making sure that not only is the candidate updated, but the hiring manager is updated, and making sure we're all on the same page. Really making sure to prioritize tasks and make sure that I keep everything organized, because, if I talked to somebody a week ago, I need to make sure they're updated and not wondering where they are in next steps. So I think a lot of it is probably organization, communication skills, and, a lot of that presentation type skills too.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like, a super jam-packed job, and especially getting to go to different student organizations, maybe professional organizations, campuses, different campuses. That's really fun for, it sounds like to me at least, to be bouncing around and getting to network and build connections with a bunch of different people.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's been great just because, like you said, I do get to network with so many people, and the traveling part is great too. I know, of course, like in the last year when we've been working from home, it's been a lot more of the presentations online, which I like too, but I like more of the interaction when you get to go up and talk to people and they have questions after and you get to really build that connection. So it is really fun.
I definitely agree with that. Enjoying the in-person aspect better, but the transition has been pretty easy, at least so far, with everything. So that's also
Yes,
good.
definitely.
So could you tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a senior recruiter?
Yeah, definitely. So I am actually from Kansas originally. So I went to University of Kansas and studied management and marketing, but I knew from the start that I wanted to be in human resources. I know I said earlier, just I liked the people interaction. I think I took an aptitude test and it said that human resources, I did that in high school and it said that would be one of the choices for me, just with those like daily interactions and communication. So I had my mind set. I actually did like a minor concentration in human resources, or I think it's called concentration, but I call it a minor too. But so after I took those courses, I was like, this is what I want to do. So I actually had two different internships in human resources, which I highly recommend. I think that really kind of solidified that was something I wanted to do. So I got to shadow different professionals and see how they did interviews and see what the benefits department did and the employment department and compensation and everything like that. So I got to see the different aspects of, what it's like to be in HR and then what would be a really good fit for me. So those internships really helped. And then as I was graduating, I actually applied to a HR receptionist role at a engineering firm. So pretty much my time was spent, once I got the role, it was spent covering the breaks of receptionist. But then on the time I wasn't doing that, I was coordinating interviews. So I was calling candidates, scheduling those interviews, and also doing reference checks and pretty much any special projects that the HR team needed. And then I, from there, moved into fully doing coordinating. So as a HR coordinator, it was a lot more of pretty much day to day was just doing so many scheduling of interviews and contacting people, emailing people, making sure that they'll be able to do it. And then a lot of like the reference checks and any drug testing, anything that basically needed behind the scenes for the candidate to be onboarded and interviewed is what I did. And while I was doing that job, I expressed interest in recruiting to my manager. And that's how I got introduced to campus recruiting. There was a campus recruiting team. And so I started by having like one or two jobs that I was trying to fill while I was doing coordinating, and realized, okay, this is what I want to do. And I started slowly being able to go to career fairs as well through my job. And then once that opening kind of popped open as a campus recruiter, I transitioned into that role and, kind of went from there. So, I was with that engineering firm for about 4.5 years and then did a lot of the hiring for interns and full-time hires that were right out of school. Decided I wanted to move to Dallas and found Ryan actually from Glassdoor. So I saw that it was on one of like the best places to work for and best CEOs to work for. So I was like, oh, I'm going to apply to this job and give it a try. And so then I met the team that I'm on now, and everything about it just seemed like an amazing fit. So started as a campus recruiter and then, was just promoted, I think, into a senior recruiter like this fall. So I would say, yeah, that was kind of the path, but I would highly recommend, I think the journey to really getting there was a lot of the internship really helped me get that first role right out of school, especially in HR. Sometimes it might be a little harder, but I highly recommend getting an internship because I think that's what helped me really get that first position. And then what kind of helped me from there was really asking for more projects, telling my manager what I was really interested in so I can get involved in it while I was still doing my other roles. So I think that's kind of what helped me get to the recruiting. I knew that's what I wanted to do. So, I told others so that they could be aware of that too.
I'm so glad that you were able to have that internship and get to experience all of those different pieces of an HR office, as well as, it's so important to advocate for yourself and to stick up and be like, well, this is what I'm interested in. And oh, that project sounds really cool. I'll totally do that. So yeah, that's so cool that you were able to do all of those things and have your team kind of back you in that.
Yeah, definitely. That was something that was really great is it got easier with time. It's not always easy saying like, hey, I'm really interested in this. It just seems a little scary. But then once I did, and how like when you do have that welcoming, supportive team, you're like, this is what they want to know so that they can really, because everyone really a great team wants to help see you get to where you want to be. So I've been lucky to work with some amazing people that really helped me kind of get to that spot as well. So definitely.
Cool. So you kind of talked about that importance of the internship as well as the importance of kind of advocating for yourself. Do you have any other advice for students that are interested in human resources? And then, do you know of any professional organizations or student organizations, since you're so involved with UNT, that they could get involved in?
Yes, all great questions. So I would say, so yes, definitely internships, but even to go further than that, I think networking is so important. I know when I was still, thinking about what I wanted to do and thinking about what industries I wanted to go in, even if it was with human resources, I was asking, my parents and peers and everyone around me, do you know anyone in HR that you could get me connected with? And that's kind of how I started, interviewing with companies. Basically, maybe one person connected me with another who knew another, and it wasn't even really a direct connection. But those networking opportunities really were something that helped me a lot to really get to see, okay, this is a company I would definitely work for, and help me kind of start those conversations. So I would say is networking as much as possible is always the best. Something I see now on my side, and I wish I would have known as a student, would be for Career Center, such as mock interviews. I've actually hired people from mock interviews, not even like later on being like, after talking to them, they would be such a great fit for this job that we, have open, but weren't hiring for like at that moment, or maybe we're later hiring for. And so getting involved in as much as those as possible, like if it's a company that you want to work for, signing up for those mock interviews, that's something that I would highly recommend, just because that's something that we've definitely, hired people from before, or from like resume reviews and organization meetings too. I've actually spoken at a couple or organizations, this year too, that I talked to them, and then after I got an email and we just set up a call and it went from there. So I really think like getting as involved as possible is always something I highly recommend, just because you get so much more exposure than you would if you weren't going to go to that organization meeting, or if you weren't going to network. My first job, I actually told a friend I was looking, and she suggested like the first company that I actually worked for. I didn't even think to look there. And it was through those conversations where she was like, you should really look at this company. They have a great HR department. So I think it's really important just to talk to as many people as possible. Student organizations, to get more involved, I think like women in business, if like is one that I talk to a lot. Or like there is human resources. I don't know if there is one at UNT. I haven't been to that one, but there are human resources group or SHRM groups that are at some colleges. So I'm not sure. I would have to look if UNT is, because I don't think I've talked to the like Alpha organization and NABA and Alpha, but I'm not sure. And other I think financial management, but anything that is kind of in the realm of what you're wanting to do, whether it be like HR or marketing or anything like that, I would say just getting involved in that campus organization. That's something that I did in college. I also was in a sorority, and I got involved in an HR position at my sorority. So anything like leadership wise that you can get involved in is just always going to give you that more experience, and like that almost like that edge over something that maybe never had that experience. So it was a tough role, but it kind of gave me that experience to go into my position. So I would say those are kind of the organizations I would recommend.
Yeah, and I love that you touched on, you got your first job by just talking to people, and, companies that you hadn't even heard of or thought of, were just laid out. And that's how you kind of began your journey. And that's so important to get involved in those organizations so that you kind of have those connections. At least a friend of a friend of a friend knows a company that needs a recruiter. So that's so huge, is who you know.
Yes, definitely. I mean, yeah, just like you said, it really sparks other conversations that, oh, you never thought you would take this job. And then it ends up being such a good job, just because you never had heard of it before. So yeah, I definitely think that's the beauty of like networking for sure.
Oh yeah. So this is one of my favorite questions to ask people about their jobs. And I think it's so true in the human resources realm as well, because, there are so many jokes on TV and HR seems to be the butt of the punchline so many times. And so I'm just curious as to what myths surround your position, like you've always just wanted to bust. Like, no, I don't actually do that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I know. I actually, yeah, thinking about this, I would say, I think sometimes I guess definitely in campus recruiting wise, people are like, oh, your job's not hard. You just go to fun parties and events and have to woo people. But I think the big part of that is it's just so heavy on like administrative work in a good way. We do a lot of emails. We do a lot of calls. It's really fun. And there's like the glitz and glam, but there's also like the hard like administrative side sometimes too. So I think that part, I mean, I love both parts, but I think people are always like, oh, don't you just like go and up to people and hire them? And it takes kind of a lot more than that. So I'd say that's kind of a myth. I'm trying to think too, about, I know human resources are kind of on a lot of the jokes. I think too, a lot of people just don't think of the whole picture, I guess, like of the different parts of human resources. So there is, more than like one path that you can go into than just like recruiting or benefits or compensation. So I think that's something else that that is maybe not widely known, is that there's so many different avenues to going into these. I know, and I was trying to think if there's any other ones, but I think those are the main things. I don't know if there's other ones that you've heard that maybe I could say if that was true or not, but.
No, those are so perfect. I've had an interview also with someone who was in sales, and they had the same myth of, it's all glitz and glam and you just get to go to all the dinners and, woo all the people. And they were just explaining all of the behind the scenes things that are stressful as well. So
yeah, that's always the number one thing we get is, oh, you go to college campuses and like you take out college kids to dinner and everything. Like we definitely do that. And then we have to come back and, file their applications and go through them and all of these things. So yeah, I'd say that was probably like the number one thing for college recruiting, at least.
Yes. Yeah. So with that glitz and glam and running around doing all of the paperwork, how does this job affect like your lifestyle? And, how do you practice that self-care at the end of the day, being able to unwind from just all of the stress of the job?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I would say, especially now that the years have gone on in my career, so I'm about like in my 6th or 7th year, I would say now I know more so of how to kind of prioritize and what things need to be done first and need to be done today and immediate. And once it gets, to a certain point, knowing when to kind of sit back and say, okay, that work will be there tomorrow. And I can really prioritize that and start, fresh tomorrow. So really like making sure to prioritize everything and schedule it out and then say, okay, I'm just going to take a step back and be able to kind of unwind for the night and shut my emails off my phone and things like that. So I think I really try to do that. And I do talk to people all day long. So a lot of my self-care is just kind of like more soothing of, watching TV and just having my mind kind of turn off from chatting a lot all day. But something that's so great about our company is we actually have a program called MyRyan. So it actually is a program that says basically, as long as you're getting your work done, you can work whatever hours you'd like. So we're not the traditional, like you have to start at 8 in the morning and then you have to, work at least till 5 or whatever it may be. You can actually pick your own hours. So a lot of times, like the great thing that this really helps with, like for my life in general is, maybe tomorrow I will have like a birthday dinner at 5:30 at night. So I'll start at, 7 in the morning so that I can make that dinner. Whereas maybe today I got up and started at 9 in the morning and I want to go later at night because I have nothing at night. So I think like finding that company that does have that really good work-life balance and is understanding to that, like, yeah, maybe some days you will work, really hard and a lot of hours, but then the next day you can take it easy and you have that kind of flexibility. I think that's been so helpful to me, especially just because like in my last job, it was a ton of hours and kind of harder to turn off. And this one, we do have that like really nice flexibility in hours where you can choose your schedule. We actually are having a summer break. So we get like a week off and it's paid for, yeah, in the middle of July. So it's really nice. I think like that it's great to find a company that does actually value, that work-life balance once they say it, so that it can help you really with that flexibility and making sure that you are taking the time that you need. Because sometimes it's hard if you, feel that pressure and you don't feel like you have that support to do that. But, I have like a great team and company I work for to have that program that's really in place saying, if you work hard, you can work those hours that you'd like. So I feel like that really helps a lot.
That is so huge to have, like you said, that company that just supports you in that and is able to foster that culture of flexibility and, taking the time that you need and making it work best for you, and a whole company-wide break. That's so good. I'm so glad that you have that opportunity with Ryan.
Yeah, no, it is great. I mean, it's one of those things where, I love the company because I'm like, well, you can really tell like why we get best companies to work for and best places when I was seeing it on Glassdoor and just like being on the other side of working there and seeing it lived out and being like, okay, wow, this is a lot of like that good work-life flexibility. So, but yeah, I think that's so important. And I always tell like that to students or people that are looking for jobs is, you should really ask, what the culture is like and what, that work-life balance is like. So you can really hear it from the employees, side of things. Cause that's what I did when I interviewed there. And, it's definitely been true forever since I like started working here. So.
Good. Well, I have one more question for you, Jordan, and that is, what is your favorite thing about your job? If you can pick, there's so many.
I would say number one thing I've always loved is probably the relationship building part. Just, I love to interview and meet a lot of people and network and do everything. But I think even further when we do have our summer intern program. So we have that for 9 weeks during the summer. And we have a lot of one-on-one, we call them campus coaches, but you're a recruiter paired with the intern and just seeing how things are going and what we can help improve or anything like that. So those are the things I love is, onboarding people or new hires and then taking it, a step further to saying, okay, how can we, keep this kind of relationship going as far as like me still being your recruiter and seeing what you need and not just stopping at the hiring point. I really have liked that so much. It's really rewarding to, see the people that you hire happy and then also just be able to really create that work life, or work culture, I guess, for them and showing them like, this is what we're all about. So I think the relationship building has always been great, whether it be, I guess, with the candidates that I hire or, with the school faculty and the, hiring managers and everything. That's probably been my most favorite.
And those are all such good choices for a favorite part of a job. Getting to keep those relationships is so important, especially, as the title of a recruiter is, you think, oh, well, they're recruited. Okay. And I'm done with them. And I'm so glad that you're able to keep those relationships going and make sure that, they're actually enjoying what they're doing and having the expectations that you had kind of given them in the hiring process.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Jordan. I'm going to share one quick thing with our students who are watching this online. If you could take a couple of seconds to scan this QR code and fill out this survey to tell us who else you're interested in seeing here, or what other fields you're interested in having a Take Flight session. So yeah, we'd love to hear your voices. So thank you for that. And Jordan, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great. It was very fun. And I'm always happy to answer questions. If students have questions about human resources or a career in it or anything at all, I would love for them to contact me, and definitely happy to help. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.